When you look at the wealthiest men alive today, with their mind-boggling fortunes and revolutionary tech empires, it's easy to be captivated by their success. Elon Musk, the man behind Tesla, Jeff Bezos, the visionary behind Amazon, and Bill Gates, the mastermind who brought us Microsoft, dominate the charts of modern wealth. But what if I told you that the wealthiest businessman to have ever lived died almost a century ago? In today's captivating video, we delve into the extraordinary story of a business empire so vast and so powerful that even after 100 years of technological progress, no man has managed to overtake its founder. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fascinating history of Standard Oil and its legendary founder, John Rockefeller. It all started in a small town called upstate New York, where John Rockefeller was born. He was born in the year 1839 to a family that was always on the move. John's father was a traveling merchant, but his real job was selling medicine. However, it wasn't the kind of medicine we have today. His father called himself a botanic physician, but in reality, he sold a 19th century version of homeopathic remedies. John's family life was a bit complicated. His father spent a lot of time away from home, and he even had another woman and more children. But eventually, his father decided to bring the other woman and children back home, creating a confusing household for John. Growing up in this unconventional setting, John learned how to make the most out of every opportunity and how to get the best deal possible. Life was challenging for John and his family. They rarely stayed in one place for long, constantly moving from one town to another. When John was just 3 years old, he started living a nomadic lifestyle. To help his mother, who had to take care of the family, John would do whatever he could to earn money. He would raise turkeys or do odd jobs for their neighbors, using his intelligence to find ways to earn every penny he could. In 1854, when John was around 15 years old, the family moved to Cleveland, Ohio. This move brought a significant change in John's life. He got the opportunity to attend a proper school, which was a big deal for him. However, his time in school was short-lived. Less than a year later, John made a decision that would shape his future. Instead of continuing his education, John dropped out of school and took a job as a bookkeeper at a local produce broker. The pay was not great, just 50 cents per day. To make more money, John started doing additional work for other companies on the side. But after 2 years of working at the produce broker, John faced a problem. His bosses refused to give him a meaningful raise, and that didn't sit well with him. Determined to take control of his own destiny, John decided to outsmart his bosses. He took a bold step and started his own produce brokerage. This decision wasn't easy, but John's good reputation helped him secure a loan of $4,000, which was a substantial amount of money at that time. With the loan, John began trading hay, grain, and various types of meat. In his first year of running his own business, John recorded sales of $500,000. It was a remarkable achievement, even though he only received a small fraction of that amount as commissions. Nevertheless, the success of his first year was a clear indication that John had a talent for business and making deals. As his business grew, John caught wind of something exciting happening just 100 miles east of Cleveland in 1859. It was the discovery of the first American oil well in Pennsylvania. This discovery set off a rush for oil, and within a year, 4,500 barrels of oil were being produced. Although oil wasn't as valuable back then as it is today, John saw an opportunity. He understood that the real money was not in drilling for oil, but in refining it. While others took the risk of drilling for oil, John decided to let them do the hard work and then buy the oil from them. John knew that the key to success was in refining the oil. He realized that oil could be turned into something called kerosene, which people used for lamps at that time. So instead of drilling for oil himself, he focused on refining it to make kerosene. He assembled a team of experienced chemists and engineers who not only improved the refining process, but also discovered various uses for the byproducts of petroleum refining. The early refineries in Cleveland could only operate at about 60% efficiency. But John was determined to change that. His team of experts not only increased the efficiency of the refining process, but also found ways to sell the byproducts, such as paraffin wax, tar, and naphtha. Within just 2 years, John's refinery became worth over $70,000, making it one of the largest and most successful refineries in Cleveland. But John's ambitions didn't stop there. By 1865, there were 26 competing refineries in Cleveland. However, within just 5 years, John had acquired all but 4 of them. At this point, John's business had grown so big that it became challenging to manage as a partnership. In 1870, he made a significant decision. He incorporated his business as Standard Oil of Ohio. This move allowed him to expand his operations and gain even more control over the oil industry. To convince the remaining competitors in Cleveland to join him, John employed a clever strategy. He invited them to see his books, showing them that he could afford to operate at a loss much longer than they could stay in business. In exchange for a fair buyout price, John offered these competitors positions in his own company. This way, he brought together the most talented minds in the industry under his control. However, not everyone was ready to give up easily. Over time, John used various tactics to undermine his competitors. He slashed the prices of oil and kerosene, sometimes reducing them by as much as 80%. This strategy was aimed at strangling his competitors, forcing them out of business, and it worked. By 1880, John had acquired refineries across the northeastern United States and was refining over 90% of the entire country's oil production. He had become incredibly powerful, even inviting the owners of big rail companies to personally negotiate rebates for using their trains. However, John's practices started to worry many people. Most goods in those days were transported by rail, and other industrialists were concerned that John's manipulation of transportation rebates could lead to similar monopolization in their industries. Businessmen, politicians, and the media began to attack Standard Oil with increasing intensity. In Ohio, where John's company was based, legislators started creating new laws to bring down Rockefeller and his company. But John was always one step ahead. In 1882, he reincorporated the company in New Jersey, this time creating the Standard Oil Trust. The trust held stakes in over 40 local companies, allowing John to maintain control and continue his dominance. To showcase his success, John decided to build an impressive headquarters for his company on Broadway. This grand building became a symbol of Standard Oil's power and influence. At its peak, John's company owned an astonishing 20,000 oil wells and 4,000 miles of pipeline and employed over 100,000 people. However, as time went on, challenges started to emerge. Massive oil deposits were discovered in Russia and Asia, and they were being developed by the Rothschild family, who spared no effort in getting that oil to America. These new oil sources threatened John's dominance in the industry. To make matters worse, in 1890, the federal government passed a law called the Sherman Antitrust Act. This law aimed to prevent companies from having too much power and engaging in unfair practices. Finally, the government had the tools to go after the Standard Oil Trust itself. Investigating the complex legal structure of the company was no easy task, but the government was determined. It took until 1911 for the Supreme Court to find Standard Oil guilty of anti-competitive practices. The court ordered the company to be broken up into 34 separate entities. However, John Rockefeller had already anticipated this outcome. He had cashed in and was no longer actively managing the company. In fact, in the final 20 years of its existence, Standard Oil had paid out over $500 million in dividends. Some reliable estimates suggest that at its peak, the company's true worth was around $1 trillion. Despite the breakup of Standard Oil into 34 separate entities, John Rockefeller held on to his ownership in the separate companies that emerged from its dissolution. As time went on, some of these companies eventually reunited, forming new powerful entities in the oil industry. Today, the remnants of Standard Oil can be seen in major oil giants such as ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP. These companies have grown to become colossal in their own right, shaping the global energy landscape. Through his ownership in these successor companies, John Rockefeller secured his place as the wealthiest businessman in history. With an astonishing estimated net worth of $400 billion, he remains unparalleled in wealth, surpassing even the likes of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Rockefeller's story is a testament to the immense power of entrepreneurship, the brilliance of strategic thinking, and the extraordinary impact one person can have on an entire industry.